Hello everyone, we're back for video number 2. So we just talked about sleeping judges in number 7, and now finally number 8, why we have wrongful convictions, junk science. Over the past 5 decades, our courtrooms have been flooded with an avalanche of unreliable, even atrocious science. Experts with qualifications that were dubious at best and fraudulent at worst have peddled, for a fee of course, all manner of damning theories based on their allegedly scientific analysis of hair fibers, bite marks, arson, boot prints, blood spatters, and ballistics. Of the 330 people exonerated by DNA tests between 1989 and 2015, 71% were convicted based on forensic testimony, much of which was flawed, unreliable, exaggerated, or sometimes outright fabricated. There is a new show on Netflix called The Innocence Files, and these are cases from the actual Innocence projects. And so the Innocence projects, they helped to release these individuals, and so here are some of these cases. They specifically deal with a lot of this junk science. Brandon L. Garrett, a professor of law at University of Virginia, has studied nearly all of the trial transcripts from wrongful convictions later exposed by DNA-based exonerations. He says there is a national epidemic of overstated forensic testimony, with a steady stream of criminal convictions being overturned as the shoddiness of decades' worth of physical evidence comes to light. The true scope of the problem is only now coming into focus. An excellent new book by Radley Bulko and Tucker Carrington, The Cadaver King and the Country Dentist, chronicles the story of two of the most brazen experts ever allowed in the courtroom. Stephen Hayne was a controversial forensic pathologist who once boasted of performing more than 2,000 autopsies in a single year. And if you read this book or get the audio version, you'll find out that usually 300 to 500 is what people typically do for autopsies a year. So 2,000 is really extreme. His sidekick, Michael West, was a small-town dentist who assumed the role of an expert in many other fields. Together, they tag-named their way through rape and murder trials in Mississippi and Louisiana, accumulating an impressive string of convictions, several of which have been overturned. Some are still being litigated. Many others, however, seem destined to stand. And these two men are featured in a couple of the cases in the Innocence Files. And it's really quite disgusting how they have just used science as a way to gain as much money as they possibly can, even though none of it is real. So here's another question when we talk about junk science. What happens when lab techs don't do their jobs? Here's another Netflix special for you. It's called How to Fix a Drug Scandal, and I've got the YouTube trailer linked here. And this is about two women in Massachusetts. Now, they are not linked together. They didn't know each other. They each worked in a lab that was on the other side of the state. One lady became drug addicted and would take the drugs that would come into her lab that she had to test for police officers. She would actually steal it and use it herself. This other woman, she wanted to be the best in her field, and so her number of how many things that she could test in her lab, it was a really high number. And they suddenly realized, wait a minute, most of these she's not even testing. And so this was a huge scandal. They ended up releasing about 30,000 people because of it. It affected that many cases just with these two women, and this is just one state. It's a maddening indictment of America's broken criminal justice system, in which prosecutors allowed, even encouraged, flawed forensic testimony because it was modeled to fit their theories of guilt. Over 2 decades, elected judges permitted these two professional testifiers to convince unsophisticated jurors that science was on the side of the state. So that's a really good documentary to take a look at. The atrocities that occurred in Mississippi and Louisiana aren't specific to one time and place. The medical examiners, police officers, prosecutors, judges, and others who hold sway over our criminal justice system around the country have largely failed to deliver justice. We must do better. And finally, why should we even care about wrongful convictions? What's in it for us? For many of these people, up until the time that they were wrongfully convicted, I'm sure they never thought that that would happen to them. But these two quotes are from Bryan Stevenson in his book Just Mercy. Remember Bryan Stevenson? You watched the documentary True Justice about. And this is what he said in his book. Proximity has taught me some basic and humbling truths, including this vital lesson. Each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. My work with the poor and the incarcerated has persuaded me that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. Finally, I've come to believe that the true measure of our commitment to justice, the character of our society, our commitment to the rule of law, fairness, and equality cannot be measured by how we treat the rich, the powerful, the privileged, and the respected among us. The true measure of our character is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned. We are all implicated when we allow other people to be mistreated. An absence of compassion can corrupt the decency of a community, a state, a nation. Fear and anger can make us vindictive and abusive, unjust and unfair, until we all suffer from the absence of mercy and we condemn ourselves as much as we victimize others. The closer we get to mass incarceration and extreme levels of punishment, the more I believe it's necessary to recognize that we all need mercy, we all need justice, and perhaps we all need some measure of unmerited grace. Very wise man. And then finally, another thought to think about too. This first one has been going around, I think, quite a bit during these protests from Martin Luther King Jr. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. So those are 8 reasons why wrongful convictions happen, and they're the most common reasons. Now what I want you to take a look at are these 2 links right here. This first one is a short video from PBS. It talks about the toll of what the justice system and being wrongfully convicted can do to a person. Now, a lot of times we might see in the news that someone was wrongfully convicted, they were released, and then they were granted this big sum of money. That does not happen in every case, and this video will show you why. It's quite devastating. And then this last link is a really short video to give you a face to what wrongful convictions are like. And this was a man who was wrongfully convicted of a rape. So basically what happened to Ronald Cotton in a sense. And so there's an example of that. So take a look at these 2, and then for the rest of the week, you have your annotation worksheet to do for this week, and then you have to type up your critical response and your summary for the article, The Staggering Number of Wrongful Convictions in America. If you have any questions about any of this, if you want clarification on any parts of the article or anything I've gone over in the PowerPoint, please let me know. Everybody have a good week.